A very good evening and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I'm Kukuletu Cele. Stockvels have evolved beyond just saving for groceries and funerals over the years. But is this a viable investment vehicle as a club, and what do the returns look like? Simon Mohapi, the Associate Financial Planner and member of the FPI, joins me now for more. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. Let's take a look at this definition of Stockvels. For many people, it is a foreign concept. For others, it's something that they're familiar with. Yes. But there's a lot of intricacies regarding these investment clubs.
Absolutely. Evening to you, Gugu. Indeed, Stockvels is a concept that comes many years back. You'll recall that people would come together as a group, and in your opening commentary, for instance, they would come together precisely to saying, let's have some groceries. You know, let's have some assets together. Let us be resourceful as a people. And this led now from one thing to the other, where people said, let's also socialize. We could have a mini savings account, you know, with any of the banks. And out of that, we could distribute, you know, the money at the end of every 12 months or so. But Stockvels, ideally, they're there to saying, for mutual benefit, let's live together as a people, as a community. And this is just to bring people together and with common interest to saying, let us all benefit out of all of this that we're creating, be it in by way of groceries, be it by way of money, or any other way of financial wealth.
Maybe if we can unpack the intricacies regarding Stockvels, the level of contribution and the kind of returns, how exactly does it work when we're pulling maybe 250 or even 1,000 rand together as individuals?
What the club does, the Stockvel club, members are, say, you've got a club of 20 people. Each one maybe with an agreed contribution of 200 rand, let's say. So every month you make a contribution of 200 rand, then you've got to amass the funds. You've got an account with one of the banks, and the money is going to be deposited there into a savings account. Now the interest that's going to be earned on that, you know, to them would have been attractive. And we know comparatively to other asset classes today, we'll get to that later, like your equities, your listed properties, you definitely can do far better. But ideally, that's exactly what people used to be doing, to saying, so long as we can have something for the year 2015, at the end of December 2015, let's share all of that money. In the new year, we start all over again. And that's how exactly they have been operating. You must remember as you do that, there are matters of governance that you need to think of here. For instance, you need to be properly constituted, you know, for governance purposes. You need to have minutes taken for every meeting. You need to make sure that there are agendas for every meeting. Now, what we find is that most of the Stockvels have been running without a properly constituted constitution. You find that minutes of meetings are not properly recorded. Record keeping is also poor. The agendas for meetings, sometimes they don't necessarily talking to the business of the day. In some of the Stockvels, yes, you will find constitutions. But do they really make a reference as a primary objective to saying we need to invest so that we're able to be wealthy? We need to invest so that the primary objective is to making sure that we go to participate in broad-based black economic empowerment. There are opportunities today all over the show. There are investment vehicles. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange, for instance, you could really go there and start trading, open up a stock account, whether with a stock broking firm or with an advice, you know, from an accredited financial advisor, so that these people can start looking at things differently. So opportunities are there. The foundation is laid, and I must say well done to all of them. Because remember, this was born out of people saying, we need to stand up and doing things for ourselves. Exactly. Except that they needed professional guidance. They needed your accountants, they needed your financial planners, they needed your bank, you know, to all come together to saying, how then do we surround these Stockvels and to make them viable vehicles in making sure that they can be standalones?
I want us to touch on some of those opportunities that you've just made mention of. Clearly, it does mean that the mindset needs to change from not just a yearly saving or investment view, but having the short-term, medium and long-term. What kind of products are available to individuals who are part of Stockvels?
There are many of them, and I must start with number one. I know whilst the broad-based black economic empowerment has come with the promise to saying, let us empower people, Stockvels have gone to saying, let's buy these special purpose vehicles, like, you know, your empowerment shares, you know, your MTN Zakhele, your Sasol Inzalo, and many others. You know, those were ideal, and I think it was a good introduction to say you can also participate, you know, in shares via special purpose vehicles. But I think, and the point you're making is absolutely correct, we need to move away from those concepts now. What is wrong with a Stockvel today opening up a trading account with a stockbroker to saying we can have a discretionary account? Here is our 100,000, do the trading on our behalf. Why a discretionary account? Remember, most of these people are at work. They don't have the time to be following the markets all the time. They do not necessarily have the skill and knowledge to saying we can do the trading on our own, the buying and the selling of the shares. Leave that to the experts. Consult a stockbroker who will sit with you, open up an account, so long as you have all the FICA requirements, your ID, you know, constitution in the case of a Stockvel, you know, your proof of residence, all of those, and your proof of banking details. Leave it to them. But that is the one vehicle that you could use. There are exchange-traded funds. There are many of them today that can expose you to the gold sector, that can expose you to the property sector, that can give you a balanced portfolio. That could also be an ideal one. Unit trusts are there, but you need to be looking at the cost as well. And there are many others. Your retail bonds. You know, government has introduced retail bonds in the past. They are still in existence through the post offices, and they are doing very well. But you do need a financial advisor who's going to be taking you through the processes, explaining precisely to you what these things mean, what they can do for your Stockvel, and you know how you could really participate short term, medium term, and long term. And my view is Stockvels are best suited and best positioned to be able to access some of those opportunities.
The only risk, though, when it comes to working with other individuals besides yourself is that things might go wrong. Things might fall apart somewhere. Is there any particular recourse that one might have in case one member fails to contribute or, you know, has all the signing power when it comes to these legal documentation and they take the money and they run? Is this something that they need to go back into in fulfilling their mandate of the Stockvel?
Remember the Stockvel. That is why I spoke of governance earlier. They've got to be properly constituted. And how do you do that? They must have their own constitution. But also it can talk to the membership to saying, you know, in terms of code of conduct, in terms of, you know, when we make investments, what is that we are expecting? When you go, for instance, into market-linked portfolios, when markets come down, clearly it means your money will be coming down as well. Your investment will be coming down as well. And people need to be aware of these things. But where, for instance, you have things such as a fraud or any malicious damage to the assets of the Stockvel, that is something different, and that needs to be addressed by the constitution of that particular Stockvel. But I still believe consumer education is key here. When you introduce these people to the stock market, when you introduce them to exchange-traded funds, it's very important that you start talking consumer education with special focus to investments and to finance. Matters of treasury are very important.
Whose responsibility is it, though, to educate these Stockvel members? Is it myself as maybe one of the executors or sitting on the executive body of the Stockvel, or speaking to an accredited advisor like yourself?
Not necessarily, you know, people within the Stockvel themselves. Yes, if you do have one who's knowledgeable, you can introduce them to institutions such as the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. You have, for instance, the Financial Services Board. They've got consumer education departments. Let them speak to the financial advisors. We are there as financial advisors to guide the people, to educate them, because without that education, how then do you expect these people to make informed investment decisions? That could be a big challenge. I mean, just to saying what is the difference between equities, which is ordinary shares, to your bonds, whether linked or non-linked, to your listed properties, to money market, what are the opportunities in international markets. You don't really expect people to know these things, but experts are there, people that are fit and proper in the language of the Financial Services Board, people that are accredited to saying, take the Stockvel, you know, own them, and make sure that you educate them on an ongoing basis. But at the end of the day, look at that constitution, where you have to be tweaking one or two things, make sure that the constitution does talk to the business of that particular Stockvel. And advisors must come in here to helping these people, and Stockvels must also make sure that they must take it upon themselves, especially the executive committee, to saying, link up with institutions such as the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, your Financial Services Board, all the regulators, so that they also can be better informed and making sure that they're also going to be partnered with the right people accredited as opposed to dealing with your fly-by-nights. It's a big problem in the country today in terms of who do you deal with. And the Financial Service Board can give you a list of all the accredited people that you can deal with. You can even go to the Financial Planning Institute. They will be able to help you to saying, this is what you need to be doing. When you go to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, you can be given a list of all the members of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange who we call stockbrokers. And all of these people are there for the benefit of those stockvels.
It's interesting you highlight that because clearly this also comes at a cost. So that's also another element that they need to analyze quite clearly.
Yes, absolutely. There will be costs, and the Financial Service Board makes it absolutely clear to saying, when you do the needs analysis of a stockvel or an individual or any corporate client, you've got to be transparent in as far as the fees are concerned. At what price am I delivering my services, my products? That must be in the mandate. Remember, you're going to have your needs analysis. That's going to be followed by your, firstly, you've got to have your disclosure document. Who are you? You've got to do a proper needs analysis. Then you have to have your mandate. That's got to encompass all the objectives of this primary stockvel that you're addressing now. And you make sure that all of these things are disclosed in that mandate. Fees, they are very important. People need to know, and they are regulated. It can be anything between 0 and 3%, as a once-off. Then you're going to be having up to 1% per annum. And these are the regulated fees, and people need to know about these things. But yes, they must be disclosed, and before you engage your services or before a stockvel says, I would like to use the service of company ABC, they need to have that kind of information.
Time now for those key takeaway points and our note to self. We've said a mouthful, Simon, and maybe if we can conclude it down into 3 key takeaway points. If you're a member of a stockvel, where do you need to start? What do you need to get in order?
Number 1, make sure that you consult with an accredited financial advisor. Make sure that matters of governance, your constitution, your minute taking, agenda for meetings is in order, and also make sure that you do have your compliance requirements. When you go to see a stockbroker, a financial advisor, they will ask you for all of these things, and they need to really talk to the business of that particular stockvel.
Well, you've said it all. Thank you so much for your time this evening and helping us educate those on the continent. That's it for Personal Finance tonight. An interesting topic it has been. Thanks once more to Associate Financial Planner. This is Simon Mohapi. He joins us representing the FPI. Now, do remember that we want to hear from you and send us your thoughts and suggestions and tweet your comments to @CNBC Africa using the hashtag Finance410 or to myself @Gukumfupi on Twitter. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.